What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the garage, and let's just start off by saying wow, thank you to all of the new subscribers out there. We hit a record the other day. I know that some people have been sharing this content out there with the Facebook groups and the forums and everywhere else. I want to welcome all the new subscribers. If you have not subscribed already, click that button down in the corner. Make sure and ring that bell. That way you get notified of any new content. And once again, I'll do the disclaimer that if you click that subscribe button, you will eventually learn how to tune. It's just going to happen. Sorry, guys. It is going to worm into your brain and rot it out until the next thing you know, you actually know how to tune. That's just the way it works. So that being said, I'm also going to have a nice drink out of my cold beer here in my sweet Goat Rope Garage koozie. So if you want to get your hands on one of those, jump over into the Patreon. There's a link down in the description. Any level gets a koozie for free whenever you sign up, even the $5 level, which gets you early access to some videos and some behind the scenes videos that nobody else but the patrons get access to. So check that out. And then, of course, there's the $15 tier, which gets you tuning assistance from yours truly. Not to say that I know everything, but between you and I, we'll figure it out, I promise. That being said, today we are going to dive into the tuner, the editor, as it were, because we had such a good response to the basics like not tunes, but tips and tricks for the scanner. I want to go through a couple things on the editor that some of you may not know about, and this may help flesh out, kind of how you do business, how you tune, things like that. If we get some weird jumps in here, that's because I'm pausing this thing to burp because I am drinking beer. Just heads up. But that being said, there's no reason to rock a disclaimer out because we're not doing any tuning today. So let's just jump straight over to the tune screen. And we have a 2009 Corvette on here. Does not matter. What we're going to be talking about is applicable from Gen 3 all the way up to the latest and greatest Gen 5s. These are just some things to help you get through the tuning process and navigate it through it. And the first thing that you probably have already figured out, but you may not think that much about whenever you go through it, is we are in basic mode to start out. There's two options if you were to come up into edit, and under view is basic and advanced. And the thing about it is basic covers 90% of the stuff we tune on anyways. The things that are in advanced, it gets so far out. There's so much crap. Like there's probably over 1,000 tables, editable tables that we have access to, which is maybe 10% of the total tables that are on modern ECMs, specifically the Gen 5s in particular. The Gen 3s are pretty simple in comparison. But that being said, if you were to go through here and look, math, we have our airflow frequencies that we can do, our speed density. Well, we don't have some stuff on speed density that we might need. If we go up underneath fuel though, we can do the readiness to disable the fuel trims. Same ordeal with the LTFT to disable fuel trims. A lot of the things that we need, power and rich, we can change the throttle on power and rich to stay out of it. If you bump this to 100% whenever you're tuning, that's one of the ways. We need some more advanced settings on that. But a lot of these things you can disable. COT, DFCO, you need advanced settings on there. Spark, though, you can access the base high and low octane. So as I said, about 90% of the things that we do whenever we tune can be done in the basic tune window. But that being said, let's go ahead. We're going to switch our view over to advanced. Have to close this out, open it back up. Now, this is the next big thing. This is huge, huge. This is table numbering. And you will see down in the lower left-hand corner here, ECM 12161. So the map on this particular setup, math versus air frequency low table, is numbered 12161. So if you ever hear somebody say, check out table number so-and-so, this is the number that they're talking about. Well, that doesn't really help you out. Where does that help you out is if you come up into edit and use the navigator, Control N is the shortcut, it'll bring open this window, and you've got a couple options in here. You can put in a number. IAT2 sensor is 14102. So if you know what the table is, 14102, boom. It takes you directly to that table. You can open up that sensor characteristic cal table, but you can also just use this to do straight up text searches. So if we know we want to tune the math, boom, we can type in math and look, there are our math tables. And it brings us right to the equivalent like section of that tab. So this is a way to quickly get through the different tables. So if we want to do Spark, we can do Spark. Actually, we need to probably do timing. Boom, 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 boom. Or we can do high octane. Spark air mass, high octane, base, things like that. So you can use this to quickly get you to things, but you can also filter it down. So we don't care about the operating system, maybe diagnostic stuff, or even transmission. So if we want to narrow down to just engine parameters, we can see a tree version of what we see back here, where we can kind of scroll through and see, okay, what all do we have here? What tables do we have available? And you'll find stuff in here that you don't find otherwise sometimes. It's pretty crazy, but if you look underneath our idle, you know, you can see what different idle tables you have available at a quick glance. This is a great tool to have. Great way to find something. If you hear somebody like me talking about adjusting something, you can come in here, quickly search for it. You know, a fine example of it is O2 readiness. So if you go right down there, boom, O2 readiness. This is an ECT car. You can open it up. This one's already maxed out to 450, so they have the O2s disabled. Same ordeal. If you're wanting to do your long-term fuel trims, man, you can go straight to your long-term fuel trims tab. So that is one of the biggest tips that I can give you specifically on the editor. It will make your life so much easier. And then, of course, you can see the table numbers down here. That way, you can quickly reference table numbers if you see somebody else. That's what a lot of professional tuners will get to the point where they just talk about specific table numbers, and that way they can jump straight to the table numbers. Now, the other side of it is the compare feature. Let me open up something. We got a comparison stock versus non-stock here. And once again, as soon as you see green, that means that there's a change between the two. If you click over to your compare file, let's find something besides VE constants. There will be something in here. How about right here? So up here, you've got three boxes. Your main file is your tune file that you're working with. Your center file is your compare file that shows you what is in this case, if we open a stock configuration, would be the stock configurations. And then a nice tip that somebody flipped over to me is the quickest way to make the changes between these two is if you go to this third tab, it's the differences. If you make these 0, it will make your active file match your compare file. And you'll know that'll happen because it goes from green to red. Now, if you were to be different between the two, you then get shading, green to red in the shading. So you have both colors on there showing that there's still a difference between the two. Whereas green just means there is a complete difference between the two. This green to red means that you have changed something, but it still does not match up to your compare file. Good to know that. Good to know that. That's a quick way to go through there, make changes, and especially, as I said, if we are getting back to dialing everything in on stuff like that, we can use the differences tab to put these numbers back in. Another prime example, we've got differences here. If we come in here and just zero these differences out, now our active file matches our compare file. And then one of the last things I want to talk about is the numbers, the units. The units are changeable, and there might be specific situations around like airflow where there's a benefit to changing the units. But the thing about it is you can just click on the units right here and scroll through any of them. That's pretty well known, but where it really comes into something that might be helpful is if you're dealing with something that has some weird resolution where it might be better to change the units. And then if you do something like that where it disables the units, you can actually come in here and change the units this way also. Flip it back over to percent. So you have multiple ways to edit with units. You'll see this a lot whenever you get into air mass tables. Let's see if we go over to Spark and things like this, where we're in degrees here, but our air mass is in grams. We might want to change the units. See if we can change. Well, this generation, you can't change the units directly on the graph there. But on some of them where we have some weird things where it might be grams, we might need to change it over to milligrams, things like that. So don't be afraid to change the units. You're not actually changing the numbers that are in there. You're just changing the representation of the numbers. So if something works better for you, use those. And there's nothing wrong with scaling through these to see what's going on. In fact, a lot of them will be, let's look at fuel injector rate versus pressure, pounds per hour. I don't know why. Oh, this setup has a, we're still in the, here we go. So pounds per hour will show you 41.7, but in this case, a lot of situations, this might already be in something having to do with like kilograms per second, where you get a lot of decimal resolution. And I don't like working with this much decimal resolution. So you might try and flip this over to grams per second or something like that, that has less decimal resolution, has more whole numbers to deal with. That way your math is dealing with whole numbers as opposed to very, very skewed out small decimal numbers. Because if you were to try and do percentage shifts on kilograms per second, you're doing a percentage of 0.005. It doesn't seem like it would move a lot. It still moves the same though, because you're talking about seconds, grams per second as opposed to, or kilograms per second as opposed to grams per second. But the represented numbers sometimes make a little bit more sense for us who are the lay people, the layman's that are doing this, if we have a whole number that we're attaching that to. So that's just kind of one of those tips and tricks there. So if we go through some of the other stuff, we always have things like the unit conversion, which we don't really have to use. It's a nice option to have, but since we can just come in here, if we're worried about changing something from miles per hour to kilometers per hour, we can come in here and literally just click on this until we go over to kilometers per hour. So we can change things just by clicking the magic green numbers out beside it. On top of it, we have a nice calculator built in just to do some simple math if you ever need to. Great example of that is whenever you're doing your PE table, your enrichment, this is an EQ ratio. Don't get that confused with lambda, which uses technically like what we would consider an EQ. An EQ ratio, the higher the number is, it means the richer it is, as opposed to on actual lambda, the lower the number it is, the richer it is. So if you were to look at something on here like this, it will tell you that you are dividing this from your stoich to get whatever it is. You have a calculator here under tools that you can use to quickly do that math. So if we're at 1 lambda and our EQ ratio is 1.196. So if we were to do 1.196, we go calculator, 1 lambda divided by 1.196, our commanded is going to be 0.836 lambda. So it's nice having a calculator there that you can jam that information out real quick. Other than that, that's basically about it. You can also do some things like the comparison log that will show you every single thing that is different between your active and your comparison file. This is a great way whenever you are switching over from a tune that had all of your things like closed loop and DFCO and stuff like that enabled over, back to that setup. This gives you a quick reference where you can say, okay, hey, look, my LTFTs are still disabled, my closed loop's still disabled, my CAD over temp's still disabled. This is a quick reference to go back and do that. So these are just things that are going to help you save time. So that's where we're going to wrap it up for now. If you have any things that you consider a must know whenever it comes to the editor, any shortcuts, tips, tricks, things like that, make sure and hit up the comments down below. Let me know what they are. Don't forget to check out the links down below. You can get your own Goat Rope Garage koozie. It makes beer taste so much better. Some good beer. And then, as always, throw a thumbs up if you find any of this content helpful. If you have any questions, hit the comments up. If you knew all these tips and tricks, why am I tongue-tied? I've only had one beer today. If you already knew all of these tips and tricks, make sure and share any of the ones that you have, because this is a community of tuners that are trying to learn new things. So we are always open. Subscribe, smash that like button. You know all the drill. I'm going to leave it to you. You guys have a great weekend. Make sure and check out the live shows on Thursday. We had a great live show last Thursday. Thank you to all the new subscribers. ABT, always be tuning. And as always, thank you for stopping by the garage.